Imagine you're walking into a crowded room. Maybe it's a party, a high-stakes meeting, or just a busy coffee shop. Suddenly, you feel it. That prickle on the back of your neck. You're convinced that the coffee stain on your lapel is glowing like a neon sign. You're certain that the way you stumbled over your hello was recorded by everyone present and filed away in their reasons to judge you folder. We live our lives as if we are on a stage, with a giant, burning spotlight following our every move. Every bad hair day feels like a public catastrophe. Every stutter feels like a definitive character flaw. But here is the paradox: the cold, refreshing splash of water to the face, the spotlight doesn't actually exist. Or rather, it only exists in your head. Welcome to the spotlight paradox. This is the psychological phenomenon that explains why we feel so observed, yet remain so invisible. It is the root of our social anxiety, but it is also the key to our freedom. If we can understand why our brains lie to us about being the center of attention, we can finally start living like no one is watching, because, quite frankly, they aren't. In psychology, this is officially known as the spotlight effect. It's a cognitive bias where people tend to overestimate the extent to which their actions and appearance are noted by others. We are the center of our own universes. Every thought we have, every sensation we feel, and every movement we make is experienced from a first-person perspective. Because we are so intensely aware of ourselves, we naturally assume that others must be equally aware of us. It's an egocentric anchor. We use our own intense self-awareness as a starting point, and even though we try to adjust for the fact that others have their own perspectives, we rarely adjust enough. We're stuck in this misanthropic lane. This isn't because we're all narcissists, though some of us might be. It's simply how the human brain is wired to process information. We are the protagonists of our own movies, so we assume the audience is watching the screen. The problem is, everyone else is also the protagonist of their movie, and they're way too busy rehearsing their own lines to notice if you missed a cue. Let's look at the science. In 2000, Thomas Gilovich and his colleagues conducted a now legendary experiment at Cornell University. They wanted to see just how much people actually notice. They recruited a group of students and told one student to put on a t-shirt featuring a large, high-profile image of Barry Manilow. Now, to a college student in the year 2000, wearing a Barry Manilow shirt was the ultimate uncool social nightmare. It was designed to provoke maximum self-consciousness. The student in the shirt was then asked to walk into a room where other students were filling out questionnaires. They stayed for a few minutes and then left. When asked how many people in the room noticed the shirt, the Manilow wearer predicted that at least 50% of the people would have spotted it. They felt that the spotlight burning bright. However, when the researchers actually surveyed the people in the room, only about 23% had even noticed the shirt. The wearer's perception of being seen was more than double the reality. The researchers didn't stop there. They tried it with positive things too, like people performing exceptionally well in a group discussion. The results were the same. Whether it was a moment of brilliance or a moment of embarrassment, the person in the spotlight consistently overestimated how much of an impact they made. They found that even when participants were given a shirt with a much cooler figure, like Bob Marley or Martin Luther King Jr., the wearer still thought they were being noticed far more than they actually were. What this tells us is that the spotlight effect isn't just about fear or shame. It's a fundamental glitch in our social radar. We are constantly broadcasting on a frequency that almost no one is tuned into. We are shouting into a void and being surprised when we hear an echo, not realizing the echo is just us. This gap between perceived social pressure and actual social attention is where our anxiety lives. It's that illusion of transparency, the belief that our internal states are leaking out for everyone to see. While we're overestimating how much we're noticed, there's a flip side to this coin, the invisibility cloak illusion. While the spotlight effect makes us think people see us more than they do, this illusion makes us think we observe others more than they observe us. We think we are secret observers, taking in every detail of the people around us while remaining hidden ourselves. Think about it. Have you ever sat on a bus and just watched people? You feel like a ghost, a fly on the wall. But every single person you are looking at is likely feeling the spotlight effect. They are worried about their shoes, their posture, or the way they're holding their phone. They don't realize you're looking at them, and you don't realize that they might be looking at you too. We are a world of people all simultaneously feeling overexposed and entirely invisible. It's a messy, beautiful, psychological tangle that keeps us all on edge for absolutely no reason. Why did evolution do this to us? Why carry around this heavy, anxious spotlight? In our ancestral past, being noticed was a matter of life and death. If you were part of a small tribe of 50 people, your social standing determined your access to food, protection, and mates. A social mistake, an insult to a leader, or a failure to contribute could lead to ostracization. In the wild, being kicked out of the tribe was a death sentence. Our brains evolved in an environment where everyone was actually looking at us because everyone knew us. But we now live in a world of strangers and weak ties. Our primitive social survival hardware is trying to run on modern anonymous city software. Your brain is still screaming, "Don't look stupid or you'll starve in the tundra," while you're just trying to order a latte without stuttering. The stakes have lowered, but our biological alarm systems haven't caught up. Beyond just our physical appearance, the spotlight paradox extends to our internal world. This is what psychologists call the illusion of transparency. It's the tendency for people to overestimate the degree to which their personal mental state is known by others. Have you ever been giving a presentation and felt your heart hammering against your ribs? You're certain the audience can see your hands shaking, hear the tremor in your voice, and practically smell the adrenaline. In your head, you are a neon sign of panic. But to the audience, you just look like a person talking. In study after study, researchers have asked public speakers to rate their own nervousness and then asked the audience to rate how nervous the speaker appeared. The gap is staggering. The speakers always feel far more transparent than they actually are. We believe our emotions are leaking out of our pores, but the truth is that humans are remarkably bad at reading one another. We are closed books, yet we walk around terrified that everyone is reading our most embarrassing chapters in real time. This illusion creates a feedback loop. We get nervous, we think people see our nerves, which makes us even more nervous. Breaking this loop starts with the realization that your internal storm is invisible to the outside world. In the age of social media, the spotlight paradox has been put on steroids. We are no longer just performing for the people in the room, we are performing for an imagined audience of hundreds, thousands, or millions. Every post, every story, and every like feels like a data point in our public trial. We spend 40 minutes editing a photo to look effortless, terrified that someone will notice the slight blemish or the messy background. But here's the digital reality: people are scrolling past your monumental life updates at the speed of light. They give your post a half-second of attention, a reflexive double tap, and then they're back to thinking about their own lives, their own feeds, and their own insecurities. We are curated ghosts in each other's machines. The digital spotlight is perhaps the most deceptive of all because it provides us with metrics, likes and comments, that we interpret as attention. But this isn't deep observation, it's a glancing blow. You are overthinking your digital footprint while everyone else is just trying to make sure their own shoes look good in their next story. The internet doesn't care about your mistakes as much as your anxiety tells you it does. There is a profound, almost spiritual relief that comes from accepting your role as a background extra in the lives of others. Think about the last time you saw someone do something slightly embarrassing in public. Maybe they tripped or dropped their tray in a cafeteria. How long did you actually think about it? 5 seconds? 10? By the time you finished your next bite of food, that person had vanished from your consciousness. Yet, for that person, that moment might haunt them for years. They might lie awake at 2 a.m. wondering if people still think of them as the tray dropper. We judge ourselves by our worst moments, but we judge others by the briefest of glimpses. When you realize that you are not the protagonist of everyone else's story, you gain the freedom to fail. You gain the freedom to be mediocre, to be messy, and to be human. That background extra mindset isn't about being unimportant, it's about being unobserved. And in a world that is constantly trying to sell us the importance of personal branding and visibility, being unobserved is the ultimate luxury. Let's talk about the spotlight in the workplace. This is where the paradox can actually hurt your career. We often hold back from sharing ideas or asking questions because we're afraid of looking stupid in front of the group. We assume that spotlight is fixed on our intellectual performance. But research into group dynamics shows that people are far more likely to remember that you spoke than exactly what you said. We overestimate the scrutiny of our peers. In reality, most of your coworkers are sitting in that same meeting worrying about their own tasks, their own deadlines, or what they're going to have for lunch. They aren't waiting for you to trip up so they can pounce. They're waiting for the meeting to end so they can go back to their own spotlights. When you realize that the judging eyes of the room are actually just distracted eyes, you can start taking the risks that lead to growth. The social paranoia we feel is a ghost, a relic of a tribal past that no longer serves us in a professional, modern environment. How do we actually turn off the spotlight? It starts with a technique called external focus. Social anxiety and the spotlight effect thrive on self-focused attention. We are constantly scanning ourselves for flaws. To break this, you have to turn the flashlight outward. Next time you feel that surge of self-consciousness, make a conscious effort to observe the environment. Look at the color of the walls. Listen to the specific pitch of the music. Most importantly, look at the people around you, or not to see if they're looking at you, but to actually see them. Notice that they look a little tired, or that they're laughing, or that they're staring at their own phones. When you shift from how do I look to them, to how do they look to me, the spotlight naturally dims. You move from being the target of the room to being the observer of the room. You're not the one on stage anymore, you're just another person in the audience, and the show is the world itself. There is a beautiful irony here. The less you care about being seen, the more magnetic you actually become. When you stop acting for the invisible audience, your movements become more natural. Your voice becomes more authentic. You stop being a wireframe version of yourself, stiff and calculated, and you start being a real, three-dimensional human being. The spotlight paradox teaches us that the world is much kinder than we think, not because it's full of nice people, but because it's full of busy people. They don't have the bandwidth to judge you. They don't have the time to catalog your flaws. They are the heroes of their own dramas, and you are just a passerby. This realization isn't depressing, it's the key to the cage. You are free to wear the Manilow shirt. You are free to dance badly. You are free to speak up and stumble. Because at the end of the day, the only person who is truly watching you is you. We also need to consider the fading effect bias. This is a psychological phenomenon where the emotions associated with unpleasant memories fade faster than the emotions associated with positive ones. Even if someone did notice your awkward moment, their brain is literally wired to forget the sting of it much faster than you are. Social forgetting is a feature of the human brain, not a bug. We are not built to hold on to the minor social transgressions of others. If we were, society would collapse under the weight of 1 billion tiny grudges and embarrassments. The spotlight you feel today will be a dim, forgotten flicker in the minds of others by tomorrow. But for you, it can remain a scorching heat for years if you let it. Understanding that science of forgetting allows you to forgive yourself. It allows you to let go of that thing you said 3 years ago, because the person you said it to likely didn't even process it as an event, let alone a memory. So, the next time you feel that heat on your face, the next time you feel the weight of 1,000 imaginary eyes, take a deep breath. Look around the room and realize that every person you see is carrying their own invisible spotlight. They are just as worried, just as self-conscious, and just as humanly flawed as you are. The spotlight paradox is a reminder that we are all in this together, alone in our own heads, yet walking the same path. You don't need to be perfect to be accepted, because no one is looking closely enough to see your imperfections anyway. Turn out the lights. Step off the stage. Join the rest of us here in the comfortable, quiet shadows of the real world. It's much more fun out here when you aren't worried about the reviews. Because the truth, the final, liberating truth, is that nobody is actually looking at you. And that is the best news you'll hear all day. If you found this insight helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps the channel more than you know, even if I'm the only one noticing. Thanks for watching.